Well, thank you again for tuning in today and joining the growing number of listeners and viewers who are following Stockwell day-to-day news. We appreciate that very much. Getting some comments back just before we get into the news, and we got a ton of interesting items for you today. But some of the comments we're getting back, we're getting a mixed range of viewers and listeners, which I'm actually pleased about. It's not just younger audience, it's not just old, it's a good mix. And one of the comments we're getting back from just a couple from, let's call it the older listeners, who are saying maybe am I talking a little bit too fast for them? And then I checked out, I did a little bit of a focus group on the younger listeners. They're saying, no, the speed's okay. And one bit of advice I got from a university student was just remind the older folks that they can slow it down just by tapping on the screen. And the younger ones, of course, they can just speed it right up if they just want to talk on their screen too and tap in the right place. So we're trying to hit the right speeds, but you can pick those speeds too. But thanks for the feedback and the comments. Keep it coming and stay with us for the rest of the show. We're going to go through these items quickly. We've got some crime issues. There's a little some information about how you can buy yourself a marriage proposal, maybe for $20,000. And other business opportunities, for instance, especially for people on the tech side, on the defense, selling defense mechanisms and technologies. For those of you who are looking at that, there's some great opportunity. And in AI, over the last 4 weeks, we're looking at the trend line and why is chat dropping somewhat, not drastically, but dropping somewhat, and Meta going up. So we're going to take a look at why that's happening on the federal scene in Canada. Very interesting. We've got a young member of parliament. Guy's name is JIVANI. And what he's been doing, I don't know if he's taking a page out of Charlie Kirk's book or what, but he's been showing up and he goes to campuses, college, university campuses, sets up the table, sets up the mic, and invites people just to chime in. He's finding a couple things. Now, one of the things that's motivated Mr. JIVANI, he's one of the younger members of parliament here, he has written a book just a little while ago about looking at the trend of why young men especially are feeling somewhat alienated and feeling a bit of a pushback from everything from the woke community and maybe even on some of the hiring front, and kind of just wondering why there's these constant references to things like toxic masculinity, young men feeling the brunt of that, and resulting in, I'm not saying this is a direct reason, but the crime rates have always been higher, of course, for men than women. That's just the way it is. And but some disturbing trend lines moving upward in terms of criminal activity for men, young men especially, feeling like they're being left out of the pathway to prosperity. Personally, I don't think that's the case, but if millions of them do, then it is a problem. So we're looking at that, and that's what JIVANI is doing. And what he's finding, he's getting people, young people from all ends of the political spectrum, and they're stepping up to the microphone, having very animated discussions. And but for the most part, what he's finding is, even with differences of opinion, strong differences of opinion, people are keeping fairly respectful. They're animated for sure, and they get excited at the mic. But maybe that generation is teaching us something, that you can have, it's okay to have differences, that we don't have to rush and not say anything because we're afraid of being accused of triggering people or getting somebody's emotions going. So interesting to see this happening. We wish MP JIVANI all the best as he continues to get out to the universities and let the university folks know that their voices are important, even if they take a different point of view. The federal Liberal government in Canada, talking about shifts to the center or even shifts slightly to the right, have tabled their bill now on bail reform. We talked about that a couple of days ago because it's a constant and increasing problem from a safety and crime perspective, that people who are serious or repeat violent offenders especially when they get caught, they get sent into the system, and it's just into the court, out on bail, no cash bail, and back on the streets. And it's those ones that are causing most of the crime, most of the problem. And the leader of the Conservative Party in Canada, Pierre Poilievre, has been making that one of the front pieces of types of legislation that he believes needs to be changed, and says that he would do it if he was in government. And the Liberals, as the one thing they are good at is doing polls. They've measured the polls now for the last few months, and they have found huge support among citizens for bail reform that is common sense, bail reform that doesn't just keep dumping the bad guys back out onto the street. And so the Liberals being Liberals, they have come up with the legislation. They just tabled it today. And we're going to see if that is going to take away from the fact that the federal Conservatives continue to close the gap, the polling gap between themselves and the Liberals. And the thing that's kind of making people chuckle, and I think it's quite funny, is so here you have the federal Conservatives. They're closing in on the Liberals, closing the gap. And all of the media can't deny those polls. So what they try and say is that they just continually attack the opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre. I think they're attacking him more than they used to attack me when I was opposition leader. I don't know. We're in the race for that one. But it's because they can't stand, mainstream media cannot abide small c conservative thinking, which is usually called common sense thinking. And they're having a real problem because they have to admit that the gap is closing. The Conservatives are gaining on the Liberals, but it's got nothing to do with the leader. And they've been singing that song for quite a while, doing they can. That the leader of the federal Conservatives, there is nothing he can do to get good media, other than the fact that, let's face it, it's having an effect on the Liberals, the things he's proposing. Let's see where that goes. Some not so good news coming out of Ontario, where it's been exposed that there's a situation that came up, and it was at one of the major coffee shops, one of the brand names across Canada. I won't say the name because it's this one particular shop, coffee house, is individually owned. It's not part of the franchise per se. And but what they have been accused of, a 17-year-old young woman came forward saying that the manager there was pressuring her to take up to $15,000 to $20,000 as a reward for doing a short-term marriage to his brother, so his brother can immigrate to Canada. And there's been, now it's on the website, on the federal government website, it's pretty clear that this type of stuff is illegal. I mean, it should be common sense. They do lay that out pretty clearly. But when people are investigating this, and it's mainly some of the, as they call, alternate media that's pursuing it. Mainstream media doesn't seem too interested. But the problem seems to be bigger than you would want to guess or hope. The problem is when a government minister or the government department related to immigration is asked the question on this, do they see it as a trend? Do they see it as growing? They're not responding at all. It's no comment. It's we'll get back to you. To my friends, former colleagues in government, nothing gets people going in terms of thinking there's a conspiracy as when you won't get back to them with some kind of an answer. It looks like you're hiding something. So is the federal government in Canada hiding information about whether this marriage for money for immigration purposes is a real thing? Is it just a one-off, or is it becoming a trend? Come on, government, let's talk about it, be open. If it's a problem, there's ways to address it, but hiding it only makes it look like it's a big problem. Policies do have consequences. Sometimes those can be positive, even if it's in the short term. And because the federal Liberals have been running such high deficits and high budgetary spending, and therefore having to increase taxes at a number of levels, because of that, and because they're not seeming to be very aggressive in terms of doing something about the regulatory machine, the regulation-making machine that infests any government, actually, it's discouraging business from coming into Canada, and we're seeing business continuing to leave Canada. So then government will put in policies to try and keep business in Canada. So they've got the policy that, which, as you've heard me previously, I question, trying to move away from the United States in terms of our defense cooperation. And I think that there can't be too much dumber of a policy than to say, let's distance ourselves from the U.S., the most powerful military machine in the world, the best technological defense systems in the world, protecting borders like in the Arctic and the high north, and we want to move away from them. Doesn't make much sense. But the government, to compensate for that, it feels the answer is that we come up with our own defense technologies, which actually we do at a pretty good rate in Canada. And so they're offering pretty good subsidy packages, loan guarantee packages to medium-sized and in some cases small-sized businesses who are pursuing defense technology-related business. And this would be high-tech. I was just helping out some people on the business side who are working with a Korean company in terms of developing some early warning missile systems. So there's opportunity there, even if it's bad policy, to pull away from the U.S. opportunity, because if you're pulling away from the U.S., then you're going to need more for your own defense. So young entrepreneurs and sophisticated developers might want to be looking at that. And in Canada, as our friends in the U.S. might know, the federal Liberal government, it's all about and always has been severe anti-American. And trust me, I am Canada first, but I'm also in favor of common sense and not cutting off your nose to spite your face, as they say. And so they've been encouraging Canadians not to have anything to do with business in the U.S. Well, it seems like Canadians have a mind of their own, because Air Canada has just announced that they are increasing the number of flights out of Toronto to jurisdictions and to destinations like New York City, Washington, D.C., Boston, Chicago. So while the Prime Minister and the Liberals might be voting with their elbows, it seems like Canadian business and entrepreneurs are voting with their wallets. So let's try and see some common sense from the federal government there. I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if we were to see legislation that would stop an airline from increasing the number of flights to the U.S. Kind of strange stuff goes on, and let's hope for common sense thinking and reality kicks in. Yes, we should fight those tariffs. I don't like tariffs. I don't think they work. But let's not do it in a way that just winds up hurting ourselves and winds up having the government to borrow billions and billions more dollars to subsidize businesses that are being hurt because of our policy vis-a-vis the U.S. Talking about New York City, we are keeping an eye on that, because it does look like Zoran Mamdani, the front runner, significant front runner, Democrat, for the mayor of New York City, has a real chance to win this. And he has, it's no exaggeration, I'm not trying to sound alarmist here, every media outlet is now reporting he is a right, full-on, 100% communist. He wants to have government-run grocery stores. He wants to put rent controls across the city. He wants to tax anybody who's making more than $1 a year. Okay, that's an exaggeration. Basically, he wants to take over business, take over the means of distribution, which is the classic definition of socialism leading to communism. It's a disaster. And guess what? He's doing very well in the polls, which shows that people are always looking for a free lunch. Now, it shows that the challenger, who former Mayor Cuomo, is not close on his own to beating Mamdani. But if the other conservative who's running, who's got about 15% in the polls right now, if he was to step down and say that he's supporting Cuomo, former Mayor Cuomo, there's actually a chance that Mamdani might lose. So here we have whether that's going to happen, I don't know. Those of you who tuned in the podcast earlier in the week, you know I was giving commentary on municipal elections in the province of Alberta that were taking place, and I'd been working for a number of months in a number of those jurisdictions, encouraging people, and there's groups out there encouraging people who are centrist in their thinking or center-right to pool their resources. Don't have 10 conservative candidates running against one socialist, because the socialist with less support overall will walk up the middle and win, because his or her votes will equal any one of the 10 or more challengers. That's what they're facing in New York City. And I hope for the, New York City, the financial capital of the world, still, as some would regard it, being run by an absolutely unapologetic, viciously anti-Israel and anti-business and anti-just about everything that isn't strongly smacking of deep socialism. Looks like he could be winning. I guess the upside of that would be people like myself who've got a little condo in Florida, and also I own a place in Canada. We're going to see people flee, and money and business and individuals looking for work will flee in droves from New York City if New York City voters choose a communist, and that is their right to choose that. So there could be some opportunity there from the capital flight and the human flight that in fact will be leaving New York City. Is there anything in common between, will our prime minister's policies in Canada be attractive to people who will be wanting to leave New York City? Not sure, because people will look at the federal liberals and they will surmise that federal liberals like high taxes and aren't afraid of debt and deficit, just like the Democrats in the US. So hard to say if much of that capital will wind up coming to Canada. There is, however, a good comparison between the Prime Minister of Canada and Mr. Zoran Mandani, the mayor for, or the potential mayor for running for New York City. And that is, both of them have been very public as saying that if Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu were to set foot in their jurisdiction, they would have him arrested. So it's tragically sad and ridiculous that the federal liberals and Prime Minister Carney is still saying that he would have the leader of the free world in the Middle East, Israel being the only country that has democracy, that has freedom of speech, that has freedom of religion, that has equality among the genders, that has equality in terms of sexual orientation, which is, all of those items are completely devoid of all the countries that surround them. And here we have our prime minister saying the one leader in the Middle East, Benjamin Netanyahu, who leads a country that truly is a democracy from that would compare to ours, and Prime Minister Carney says he would have him arrested. I hope he snaps out of that. I hope he also has some kind of influence on the people in New York to let them know we're open for business here in Canada. We don't do dumb things like arrest prime ministers from democracies. MIT has, for our college students, just finished an in-depth study, 1,200 students, and they're looking at the question was asked, of course, how many use AI or chat GPT, whatever one they want to use. 95%, of course, of students, and just as I do, use AI, and 25% now admitting to the fact that they use AI to write their essays. I think it's probably higher than that. I know I'm going to make a confession here. If I was back in university days and if I could push a button and have my essays written for me, I don't want to think about how quickly I might do that. But in fact, the follow-up studies on this, and they do this through brainwave research, is that the students who tend to do that in the regions of the brain where they can measure things like creativity and things like activity and perseverance, those areas are noticeably, the synapses in those parts of the brain for the students who are getting their essays done, significantly lower than other students. I guess that shouldn't be a surprise. But if you're bragging about the fact that you're getting AI to do your essays, you might think about the fact there's not much to brag about. And of the students interviewed, the 25% that does get their essays done by AI, almost all of them can't remember even one quote from the essay or the material they prepared. I think back to my university times and giving in papers. I don't know if I could remember many of my quotes, and I didn't even have AI to rely on, but some trends there that people should indeed be thinking about. Talking about the world of AI, trend lines are measured not over a year or over a quarter year, but in fact over 4-week periods. So there's been a trend line recently, just this last 4 weeks, showing Meta AI moving up among users and others moving down. Meta has been moving up, and I think the reason for this is their Vibes program, which actually mimics TikTok. And not just for that reason, but the movement has been quite significant. A movement upwards to Meta AI in the last 4 weeks, from 775,000 users to 2.7 million. That's pretty significant. They think that one of the reasons for that is the fact that, as many people would know, the Sora program, which let's just say the other guys put out, is an invite-only platform that discourages then many of the younger users. Vibes, being put out by Meta, mimics TikTok, and for especially the younger users and viewers who like the video generative capabilities of that, have moved in measurable numbers over to Meta AI. And because they like the ability to do that, because they're locked out, the younger ones, on the invite-only platform of Sora. So it'll be interesting to see if that continues. So in the last 4 weeks, we've seen Chat GBT, we've seen Grok, we've seen Perplexity, all drop 3 to 7%. Could be one of the reasons. My main concern is that the numbers here don't drop. Thanks for watching, folks. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the comments. Stay tuned for tomorrow's show. Thanks very much.